So I shouldn't like put things in my nose.
You can put things in your nose now, but in about 3 minutes, I probably wouldn't be
Yeah.
the best.
I don't know. They'd remember it. I've got some Gorilla Glue.
There you go. Hey, by all means, have fun with it though.
Oh, it'll be fine. It's gonna be good. I should ask that guy if he wants to put $800,000 into the business. That'd be good. see if he wants a little action.
All right, everybody, just so you guys know, I am doing a test run just to see that everything's working out. Just me and Spike hanging out for right this minute. We're about to start here in about 1 minute, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll.
Sweet.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, there you go. See here. All righty, with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. So, hey, everybody, how are you guys doing? I am Tim Nichols. I am the host of the Brewing Business Podcast. And for those of you who have not listened to the Brewing Business Podcast, it is a podcast where I interview today's best brewers and brewery owners to give you the best insight and the best knowledge in today's ever-growing environment. Today, I am joined with Spike Buckowski out of Terrapin Brewing Company out in Athens, Georgia. Basically, today's webinar is going to be a 30-minute how to create, grow, and profit from your brewery. And then the second half is going to be a 30-minute Q&A with Spike. And he's going to give you the best of his knowledge, the best of his abilities to answer all of your burning questions about today's ever-growing environment of brewing, and it's going to be amazing. I hope you guys are going to have a blast. And with that, I'm going to take it over to Spike, and he's going to be able to tell you a little bit about himself and a little bit about Terrapin and what they're doing out there.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Spike with Terrapin Beer Company, brewmaster. And just to give you a little history about Terrapin, we came about in the year 2002 when the craft brewing industry wasn't really at its high point. My business partner and I, John Cochran, we kind of got together about 1997, 98, started putting a business plan together. And, looking around at the industry, it was a little tough to get capital at the time back in those years. Back then it was all internet craze and things like that. So we were both brewing at a brewery in Atlanta, and we decided to put our thinking caps on and do a business plan. And then we both left that brewery. I went to go build a brewery in Midtown Atlanta. John went to go work for a distributor so he can do that side of the business. And, I was building this brewery and approached the owners to basically brew Terrapin at that facility. About 2 months before that facility was ready to open, they went out of business. They never started. So John and I went to go look for capital again. And then 2000, when September 11th hit, it was a big setback as well. So we were probably from 1997, 98 till around 2002 or so looking for capital to try to open this brewery. We finally looked at each other and said, well, how much money you got? And we rubbed our credit cards together. And we did we started contract brewing in a brewery in Atlanta called Dogwood Brewing Company. So I would go down to the facility, brew beer down there. It's kind of less glamorous. It was less glamorous then because now it's called gypsy brewing, and everybody loves to be a gypsy brewer. But at the time, it was called contract brewing, and it was difficult. Trying to start a brewery back in 2002, contract brewing, walking into local accounts going, hey, I'm Spike with Terrapin Beer Company. And the accounts would go, oh, well, where are you guys located? Well, we're located in Athens, Georgia, but we don't have a brewery yet. We're contracting at that time. We were contracting in Atlanta. But anyway, in 2002, we won a gold medal for our rye pale ale. Won a best pale two. Then in 2004, we came out with our cream ale at the time, and that won a silver medal at the World Beer Cup. There was no gold medal awarded that year. So we brewed the best cream ale in the world for 2 years there. And then we finally got some money together with an investment group, and we started the brewery in Athens, Georgia in 2007. So it actually took us 5 years to finally find some investment capital. We were basically brewing at a brewery in Atlanta at the time and moved the equipment up to Athens. And we've been here ever since. In 2007, gosh, we were probably doing 15,000 barrels, maybe 18,000 barrels. And we hope to hit about 65,000 barrels this year in Athens. So slowly but surely we're growing. And as you guys know, the craft brewing industry is on fire. So there's a lot of growth in the market. You just got to grow, you got to grow smart, right? So that's what we're trying to do.
And just so you guys know, there's going to be a chance for somebody, or actually two people, to win Beersmith software by the end of this. So keep the chat roll going, and I will choose 2 random lucky goers who are interested in having a free Beersmith software. And with that, let's bring in the first question here. So what does it take to get a brewery going in today's climate?
Well, I tell you, what I see today is the climate is a lot easier to go raise capital than it was when I was out there. We get calls every day on the phone and emails about people wanting to take your business to the next level, right? You know, invest in this and that. So I think today is the climate's a little more friendly. I would just make sure that you know who you're getting in bed with when you take this capital, and where to put your money. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a bank, an investor, or your Uncle Joe, they're going to want to see a return on their investment. So just be very smart for who you're going to be working with. Make sure they're going to be great partners. And if you can afford it yourself, even better, right?
So what are some of the best ways that you can market your beers? So, because there's so many breweries opening, and how is Terrapin able to stick out in the way that you guys marketed your beer starting from 2006, and now you guys are even jumping even bigger into today's ever growing craft beer market?
Yeah, it was, when we put the business plan together, I mean, we really didn't have any artwork, right? So, we had a name, a concept, an idea. I actually met the artist. His name is Richard Biffle. I met him at a music festival in Tennessee called Bonnaroo, and walked into his little art tent and noticed, man, I got that Grateful Dead album. I got that Dead poster. I've got all this stuff that he had done. So basically approached him and asked him if he wanted to do beer labels, and basically told him to go into a package store, walk up and down the beer aisle and look at what everybody's doing and try to figure out a package that would make us stand out. Now, obviously, not all of our cans and bottles are the same. I mean, we've got Reserve Series artwork, we've got Turtle artwork, we've got a whole bunch of different things, but the common theme is it's all Terrapin. It all ties back in. So, I guess if you want an answer or if you want advice, it's got to look great to a consumer, because it's almost like a Christmas present, right? You see outside, you see the wrapping paper, right? So you open it up and you're hoping it's going to be a great beer, because it's the artwork that's going to make you buy that first beer, but it's the liquid inside the bottle that's going to make you come back for more. So, it all depends on what you want to do, and if you got a great artist, or what direction you want to go with it. But artwork and marketing, it's a big, big part of the business. And, we don't have the opportunity to go advertise on TV and radio and all that. We do it all in-house. All the words, kind of like the paragraphs and the descriptions of the beers on the bottles, I write all those with the help of our sales and marketing director. So it's really a grassroots inside company function, because who knows the company better than us, so we kind of direct it the way we want it.
So how exactly, or I know that you actually went to some brewing school, and they have Siebel Institute of Technology with their brewing
Yeah.
program. How important is having that formal education with brewing? Is that very contributive to the success that you guys have had there at Terrapin, or would you suggest that everybody try to get into that if they're going to try and get in the brewing industry?
Um, I've seen great brewers with education. I've seen great brewers without it. I mean, I went the school route. I mean, that's just how I did it. And I don't regret it. It was a great learning experience. But, of course, somebody, let's just say fresh out of college with a food science degree that wants to be a brewer, that goes to a well-known brewery and studies under the brewmaster there, can also get a great education. Um, so it's kind of like asking a chef, is he classically trained, or did he learn from his grandmother or something, but all of our brewers here have taken some type of brewing course. And if we hire a brewer here, we want to get them to school. We think it's really important to go learn. We are not the smartest people in the industry. And I'm just grateful that I can pick up the phone and call brewers all around the country and ask questions, or my old professors. So knowledge is key, so whether you take the school route or not, um, just make sure you have great brewing practices, and, you make great beer. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? So whether you're classically trained or not, you just want to go out there and make the best possible beer you can.
So Terrapin's been pretty. They've had a lot of money come their way. You've been pretty advantageous in that aspect. So, what is the best way? Say you were to get money from an investor. What's the best way to spend that money? Say you want to take your small brewery and just take it to the next level. What's kind of the money that you're going to be spending to make that happen?
Yeah, I think it all depends on what you have or what you want. We have like a wish list here. We would love to start getting into sour beers and funky beers and things like that. We just don't have the space in our facility to do so. So what do you do next? You look for an offsite location where you can bring that funk out of the brewery into another location. So that question, it's kind of interesting. I mean, where are you going? Are you going from, let's just say you've got an old junky bottling line and you want to go into cans. I mean, we had a situation a little over a year ago, and we had to decide whether we were going to invest a couple $1 million into a bottling line, or we were going to invest it into a canning line. And for us, we invested into a canning line, and we probably are going to, by the end of the year or so, we'll have about 75-80% of our products in cans, and we'll do a little contract brewing on the side for our bottles. We also do in-house bottling runs here as well, but we saw the future of craft brewing going to cans, so we bought a canning line. So I think it's just a gut check for everybody who owns a brewery, what their needs are, right? So if you're at the hump where, you want to go into cans, or maybe you're just doing draft right now and you want to go into bottles or large format bottles, or you want to do bottle conditioning, it's all you've got to pick and choose and make that priority list to benefit your business. So unless you have a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow where you can just go, oh, here's another 2 million we can use for this. But a lot of breweries don't. So I would say follow the market trends and just try to figure out what you're trying to achieve and put your money towards best practices to get you there.
Now, I know you and I talked on episode 8 of the Brewing Business Podcast, and it was a great interview, I must say. I'm sure everybody's checking it out at brewingbusinesspc.com. And you had mentioned that if you could do it all over again, you wouldn't start in Georgia. Can you explain why you wouldn't start in Georgia, and what states you would recommend and what states you would probably not start a brewery in?
Um, yeah, Georgia's a tough state. They are not very, how do I put it politely? They're not very friendly to breweries. And with that, I mean, is that we can't physically sell beer across the bar, right? You can't come into Terrapin. You can't buy a six pack. You can't buy a case. You can't buy a keg. I basically sell you a glass so you can take a tour, and I'm limited to sell you or give away, I'm sorry, I give away 32 ounces of beer, right? So how much hurt my business? A lot. I mean, if I was able to sell $4 pints across the bar, I'd be able to put more infrastructure into my brewery. I'd be able to hire more people. We would pay more taxes, just on and on and on. For states that are very, very friendly that come to mind, I mean, Florida, it's got a great booming brewery business. I mean, it's so interesting to see these little guys start with nano breweries, 15 barrel, 1 barrel systems. They open up a little tap room. People come in, they buy their beers, they pocket the money, and then okay, maybe we're going to go to a 10 barrel system. Same thing. They grow, reinvest into the business, and grow again. North Carolina, right? Where did two of the biggest breweries in the country go to build their brewery? New Belgium and Sierra Nevada went to North Carolina. Friendly beer laws. So I would definitely do your research. Every state is different, but I would personally, if I was to do it again, would go to a friendly state where they want your business to succeed. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So a lot of people I talk to have a little bit of an issue getting started with a business plan. So how did Terrapin go about forming their business plan, and what are some of the things that you started with to get going, and then what were some of the things that you kind of took out once before you started actually getting the ball rolling with Terrapin?
Yeah, it's crazy, and I wish I can find this book, but my business up with this business plan book. You would read a chapter. At the end of the chapter, it would ask you questions. You would write out all the questions, and what it was doing, it was building your business plan. So, that's how we did it. I'm sure there's a lot of smart people out there that know how to write business plans, but if you don't, I would definitely take a course on it, or buy books or go online to structure a business plan. But it has to be tailored to obviously your specific business. So there are formulas and things that you can do to make it where it benefits you, right? So you're not trying to sell cookies, you're trying to build a brewery. So dial it in and be very concise and put it together. And like I said, in this climate, I think you'll do very well. But business plans are very important, and I think you really have to have a plan and a vision. So when you do lay that on the table and explain it to your investors, you have a vision of where your brewery is going to go, right? I wouldn't go and write a business plan and go, "Hey, I'm Spike, and I want to make this beer." Okay, great, right? So they're very important, and like I said, I think the more information you can put in a business plan, and the better, the more concise it is. The more hits you're going to make or get.
So if you give an example to somebody who wants to start between like a 1 and 5 barrel small microbrew, maybe a small tap room, what would probably be your first 5 steps as to what you would need in that business plan to get the ball rolling, either for the rest of the business plan or even get the ball rolling just to just step over that leap to starting a brewery?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, are you a home brewer? Have you ever brewed before? I mean, a lot of guys out there are like, "Hey, I'm an attorney and I want to start a brewery." Right? Okay, well, where's the experience come from, right? So first of all, you better know what you're going to brew, right? And right now, what's hot? IPAs, right? Well, you better have something else in your back pocket than an IPA, because when you walk into a store, or when you walk into a bar and go, "Hey, I'm Joe. I own Tito." Well, Tito's is already taken. I own Big Ben Brewing Company, and you walk in there like, "Oh, what do you make?" "Well, I make an IPA." And the bartender looks at you and goes, "Well, shit, we got 20 of them on tap already." So, you know, be something unique, right? I mean, try to do something that no one's thought of. I know it's getting crowded out there, but you have to have your own identity. What's the difference between your brand and somebody else's brand? What makes you stand out? So for the little guys, I mean, like I tell everybody, be overcapitalized, not undercapitalized, because once you're behind that eight ball, it's going to get harder and harder to get caught up. And don't forget, the larger breweries or the established breweries, they buy ingredients at way cheaper prices than you do as a home brewer or as a nano brewer because you don't buy in bulk, right? You're looking for 4 pounds of hops or 11 pounds of hops, where bigger breweries you're talking 1,000 pounds at a time, or malt and things like that. So when you do put that business plan together, the first thing you would ask yourself, or you should ask yourself, am I going to make money at this? And if I'm not, how long am I going to be sitting there not making money before I can actually pay myself? Because trust me, I didn't get paid for 5 years. So I had another job, but I mean, we never profited off Terrapin until we built a brewery here, and we were able to pay ourselves. So that's a big tip. Run the numbers and see if they work.
So we're at a point where we've ran the numbers, everything works. We're just now starting to want to expand our brewery hypothetically here. So what is the best way that we could go and find investors? Find what can we do to set ourselves apart from the other 1,000 breweries that are looking for investors? What can somebody do listening to this webinar today to set themselves aside and get their foot in the door with somebody that wants to invest?
I would say have a good numbers guy, accountant that can actually forecast for 3 or 5 years to see where your growth is going to be. I mean, if you walk into a bank or you talk to an investor and you just say, hey, we're going to do 100,000 barrels in our first 3 years, well, they're going to want some numbers to back it up, right? So, like I said, going back to the business plan, just know your numbers. I mean, be realistic, right? If you're starting out with, let's just say, a 2-barrel system, don't tell me you're going to be doing 30,000 barrels in 3 years, because it's not going to happen off that system, even if you run 24/7. Um, you know, Sometimes people do business plans where they come in just a little shy, so they make their numbers look good. I mean, just try to be as honest as possible. I mean, I don't know, what area you're going to be in. I don't know, right around the street or right around the block from a baseball stadium or a large venue or something like that. Or, hey, maybe you're a mile from Disney or Universal Studios, where there's always a constant influx of people. If you're building it in a farmhouse somewhere up in Wisconsin, up in the mountains, where it takes a half hour to get up your driveway, that's tough. So location is key as well. How much foot traffic are you going to have? Who's going to be coming by? What's the nightlife like? How long can you stay open if you have a tasting room? Do they put restrictions, right? My tasting room can only stay open, I believe it's 3 hours, right? So when we give tours, it's like from 5 to 8 or 4:30 to 7:30, right? Go to a place where you can be open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. That'll generate some capital. So make sure, or merchandise, right? So if you're going to sell merchandise, how much money can you make off that? Can you make mead? Can you be a distillery? I mean, what other areas can you generate capital off your brand? I mean, when it comes down to it, you want to survive. You're building a business. Don't get me wrong. I started as a home brewer too, and it was fun as hell. But at the end of the day, if you don't make any money, your business isn't going to be around too long, right? So I don't care if you're a nano brewery losing $200 a month, or you're a microbrewery losing $80,000 a month. It's no good when you're not making any money, because then no one's going to loan it to you. Once you have money, everybody wants to loan you money. When you don't have money, forget it. So it's a little bit more dicey or tricky when you don't have the capital. But once you get up and running and you can prove that you are not a risk, it's a lot easier to get the capital.
So what's Terrapin doing nowadays to expand? You guys are a huge brewery in the realm of different breweries, not quite as big as New Belgium or probably Sierra Nevada, but what are you guys doing new, and what kind of investments are you guys looking in at the size that you guys are now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a friendly bank. I mean, we're working with a banker right now that's been very, very kind to us, and we got some good terms. And it's what we try to do, or what we wanted to do, is basically take like a plateau effect. We wanted to invest, right? And then kind of level off for a year and then invest again and level off for a year. It didn't quite work that way because we're growing at 40% a year. So as you grow like that, you need the infrastructure to come in, and you also need more sales staff. So we kind of grew 3 years in a row. Now we really have to take a look and go, okay, we've got to chill out for a little bit, and make sure these tanks are full and make sure we're at capacity so we generate capital to go again. Because if you want to bring an outside investor, want to bring outside investors in, well, now you got to look at yourself and go, okay, let's just say I have a business partner. I own 50% of the business. My business partner owns 50% of the business, right? Well, now we need capital. Well, a guy coming in that's going to give you or loan you capital is probably going to want a piece of that business. How much are you going to give up, right? Are you going to give it 20%, 60%? I mean, I don't know. So you've got to really kind of look at yourself and go, okay, I'm going to do this by myself and I'm not going to take a dime from anybody. That's awesome if you can do it. But once you start taking money from outside investors, be prepared to give some equity up.
So when you're looking to grow your size of your brew system, and you want to jump from maybe 1,000 barrels a year to 10,000 barrels a year, is that an easy jump to make, or do you have to have set distribution in place? Do you have to have a way to sell all that beer before you even consider even making that much beer? I mean, obviously jump up even a bigger scale to 300,000 barrels a year.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously you're not going to go from 1,000 to 100,000, but like when we looked at it and we did 45,000 last year, right? So we have a set footprint. We're in 13 states, right? So we kind of get our feelers out there to what we're going to do the next year. And if everything goes well, we'll do about 65,000 barrels a year. I mean, we're fortunate enough that we've got a stopgap. If we run out of room, we can also contract brew as well. So that's always a nice stopgap to have. If we run into production problems, we can pick up the phone and put more beer in the tanks. But to get to that next level, I mean, you're talking about fermentation space, chilling capacity, bigger hoses, gaskets, more stainless. I mean, it's never ending. So as long as you keep growing, you got to invest in the business. Right. But for us, it's kind of nice that we have a stopgap that we can pick up the phone and put beer in the tank if we get stuck. So I'm not saying everybody wants to do it that way, but I've been contract brewing ever since I got in the business. And that's how we built our brand. We built it off contract brewing. So like I said, our bottling line, if I could, it would be in the bottom of the ocean for a reef for fish that can hang out there. Right. So we just bought a brand new canning line and the product has gone up immensely. So now we're contracting a little bit of our bottles out to fill that stopgap and, get the quality up. I mean, it's just people don't want to drink bad beer, right? So you will do everything in your power to put out a great product, because once somebody spends $10.99, $11.99 on a 6-pack and it's not good, it's hard for them to make that commitment again. I mean, your bottom line, your number one goal is to be to put out the best quality beer you possibly can.
So what would your suggestion be for contract brewing? I know you've done it your whole career. So would you suggest that to everybody that wants to get into the brewing industry, at least to get their brand out, versus just trying to go full in and spend $500,000 in a brew house in the whole 9 yards?
It depends. I mean, do you got a rich Uncle Joe that can give you a couple $1 million to start that won't get mad at you if you fail? I mean, we did it off credit cards, right? But for us to get in the game, that was a way to do it. I mean, we contract brewed. If you want to take that plunge, go right ahead. I don't know everybody's situation. I'm just telling you how we started it. But contract brewing is great because you've got to buy ingredients and you've got to pay for the beer. But what if your brand tanks, right? So let's just say to contract brew, I don't know, because of marketing and how you're going to set your brand up and all that kind of stuff, you might need $100,000 to do that. And I'm just throwing it out there. You might need more, you might need less. Or you're going to put in a new brewery. Let's just say you're going to get a 20-barrel system, some tanks, a space, and all that. all right, you're looking at 1.5, $1.8 million. I'd rather take the hit on 100,000 than 1.8 personally. But, a lot of people don't want a contract. A lot of people don't believe in it. And, they think you're not being honest with the consumer. But for us, we were honest with the consumer. We went out and said, hey, we're two guys with a dream, and we're contract brewing, and we're going to build our brewery. And it took us 5 years, but that's how we got started. And like I said, it's a different climate today. I mean, people are walking around and they're starting with 30, 40, 50 barrel brewing systems. I mean, it's crazy. When John and I got in the business, brick and mortar was over. I mean, if we wanted to make a virtual brewery, an online brewery or something, people would have gave us millions of dollars. But because we wanted to build a brewery, we couldn't raise any capital. So it's a different climate today. But if you want to go save contract brewing, I would definitely look at contracting more than not look at contracting to get into the business.
Well, Spike, I just want to thank you for the first half of this webinar, and this is going to bring us into the second half with a live Q&A. And just for you guys out there, I know that the chat box is blowing up right now, so there's a ton of great questions out there. And just keep them coming in. We got Spike around for another 30 minutes, so then we're just gonna see what he has to say about what you guys' questions are. So, Spike, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and.
I'm ready.
So Joe asked, other than yourself and John, what were the first 4 hires and positions filled once the brewery headquarters was established?
Wow. Well, my first hire was our brewer, who is still our brewer today. His name is Brandon. And it's kind of a joke that Brandon actually came with the equipment when we bought it. We bought equipment from Atlanta and moved it to Athens. So Brandon came with that equipment. Now, Dustin Watts, our VP of Marketing and Sales, he was basically our first hire before we had the brewery. So we needed someone to go out and sell the beer while we were contracting. So I think sales is very important, especially in today's market. It's kind of interesting. Back in 2002 or so, when we started up, you would talk to breweries and you would say, oh, what do you do for the brewery? Well, I'm the salesperson. Well, what do you do? Well, I'm the Southeast salesperson. I cover the East Coast, right? So let's just say it was from Virginia to Miami or something, or even I'm the Southeast regional manager. It's a little different. I mean, I know breweries that have 7 market reps in Florida alone. So what's happening is that there's so many local breweries in markets that you need a full-time employee in markets just to keep up with the Joneses. So I think sales is very important. And obviously, if you're not doing the brewing or you need a hand to do brewing, you're going to need somebody to help you out working in the brewery. And if you have a tasting room, you might need a tasting room manager, bartenders, things like that. So it all depends on what business model you're going after.
And Harold asks, could you please recommend us some equipment brands, brewhouse, fermenters, pumps, bottling line, keg washer, the purveyors of companies that you guys use? Also, is it feasible to buy secondhand equipment to start a brewery that's 100 barrels a month, monthly capacity?
I would definitely look into used equipment. Obviously, you want to know what you're buying before you buy. I would be very leery, and this is just me, of tanks and equipment that's made in China. I know that they're getting better, but I've heard some horror stories about manufacturers using cheaper stainless. If you want my recommendations, I'm going to say Rolex for a brew house, because that's what I have. Right? Is somebody starting up a brewery going to go out and buy a Rolex? Well, that'd be nice if you got the money to do so. But I think, as far as equipment goes, I mean, trust your manufacturer. I mean, whoever you go with, whether it's a German company, a U.S. company, a Canadian company, call up other breweries, and see what they're using. I've got a CFT canning line. That's just something we bought. You can go out and buy a Crohn's, right? There are a lot of different models out there, but what I would do is I would do your research, and then I would ask the companies that you are looking at to give you a list of clients. Pick up the phone and go, hey, Joe from blah, blah brewing company, how do you like your DME system? Right. Um, you just got to do your research. And it's all going to depend on budget. Right. So, you got $2 million to spend on a brew house, or do you have $200,000 to spend on a brew house? You are going to buy what you can afford. So whatever you can afford, just do your research and do your homework, and then, like I said, talk to breweries that use that equipment.
Awesome. And then we have Joe here. He asks, what investment option was offered to parties to secure the $800,000 that was invested in Terrapin in 2006? There's so many ways to go, i.e. equity, credit, loan. Can you kind of elaborate on how you guys went that route?
Yeah, I mean, well, John and I really didn't have any capital, right? So when we started the business, we started it with credit cards. We went the personal investor route because we had a acquaintance who knew a group of people that were actually in our hometown, Athens, Georgia, uh, that were looking to place their money somewhere. So we went that route. Like I said, today's climate's a little different. You might be able to go get bank financing um, to start your brewery. What about Kickstarter, right? So how much do you need? Do you need $50,000 to become a contract brewer, or roll in a half barrel Sabco system and put it in a little tasting room? It all depends on how much money you need. But my number one recommendation is to know who you're getting in bed with, because if those investors turn out not so friendly or not so nice, you're going to be in for a hard time. Um, so, like I said, Kickstarter would be great. Friends and family would be great. If you can do it all yourself, get on you and do it that way. There are government loans. Maybe you're going into an area or a part of the city that's under duress, that they want businesses to come in and flourish there. Go tap the town. See if they'll buy you a building. I don't know. There's a lot of things. You guys are creative. You guys are home brewers. You know how to brew. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities to go explore. But like I said, wherever you get the money from, someone is going to want a return. So just make sure that your books are set up that you are going to be able to give them a return.
The next question we got from Andy, and he says, what is your suggestion on the brew pub versus just a straight brewery?
My suggestion, whether to do a brew pub or a brewery, I don't understand the question.
I guess what, as far as a restaurant involved with a
Mhm.
brewery goes, would you suggest doing that? I know Terrapin hasn't done that, but what's your suggestion or your thoughts on that?
My background was from brew pub. I mean, when I did my internship, when I went to American Brewers Guild, I did my internship at a brewery, I'm sorry, a brew pub. But I've worked in brew pubs and breweries. In Georgia, unfortunately, you can't be both, right? So at Terrapin, I cannot serve you food because it's against the law. So you either have to be a brewery or a brew pub. It all depends what you like to do. I'm not a chef. I'm not a restaurateur, but I brew beer. So if I was to go that route, let's just pick both of them, right? If I was to go the route of the brew pub, I want a good restaurateur, I want a good front of the house guy, and I want a good brewer, right? Because if you got a good chef, right, to make food, if you got a good brewer to make the beer, and you got somebody who can run the business, that's a home run, right? And not everybody has that. Not everybody can put all that together. Breweries, they're a little easier because you don't have to worry about food, right? I don't want to worry about food cost, right? I just want to make beer and put it out there. So it really depends on what you're going after. Are you in a friendly state where your brew pub can distribute, right? I think in Georgia, you can only distribute 5,000 barrels of beer out of your brew pub. So are you in a friendly state where you can actually make money on your restaurant and sell beer in-house and then also distribute to the outside world, which would be great. So it's going to be a personal preference. I don't have a preference. I mean, I went the brewery route. But if you have restaurant experience and you're a brewer as well, and that's the atmosphere you like, go for a brew pub. You know.
So then we have another question here from Caldamentum. Do you find the business management part to have a huge impact over the classic brewing education?
I mean, you will get on the job training very quickly in business management, right? So you are opening a business, right? So I think brewers that get into the business that don't have business experience can probably do okay. But if your partners or even investors have a background in business, it's so much more helpful. Um, my business partner actually had a degree in business, so that was great. But as your brand builds, you're going to pull in CFO. You might pull in an operations manager. You might pull in a director of sales. When you get to, when you get even bigger, you might pull in an HR person, right? A marketing person. So um, you want to use the skills that you have, obviously. But if you're deficient in one area, look for that partner or look for that person that can help you out. Because it's so much better to have somebody on your team that can actually see where you're going instead of you getting there by yourself and going, oh man, I probably should have done that 6 months ago. Where somebody that's come from a bigger brewery or knows business can probably say, hey man, let's do this now because in 6 months we're going to need that. So it's nice to have somebody looking at the business further out. Like when we do our business, we try to stay 5 years out, just so we can stay ahead of the curve. Don't get caught with your pants down and go, oh man, I needed XYZ 6 months ago. Well, 6 months ago, it's too late then. You missed the ball. You dropped it.
So how much do you guys produce on draft, and how much do you guys distribute outside of bottles and inside of bottles? What kind of percentages do you guys have?
Um, it's about 60% bottles, 40% draft. We used to be about 50-50. We started as a draft brewery only. So it might even be closer almost to 70% bottles now. As you guys probably know, it's getting harder and harder, to get taps at restaurants and bars. It's also getting harder and harder to keep them. People love the rotation nation, right? People always want with something new. So it's hard to keep a tap these days at a bar because they're always switching them out, switching them out. So I think you'll start to see, even if you come out draft first, when you come out with your bottles or cans, you will start to see that even out, and your bottles and cans will take over draft sales. But hey, like I said, if you want to just do draft only, that's one option. But like I said, you're seeing a lot more bars rotate through handles much more quickly because there's a lot more beers on the market, and people want that variety. So, excuse me.
So how do you deal with the highly restrictive laws out there in Georgia? And would you rather start somewhere else instead of trying to fight the change of the tax and alcohol laws, or are you comfortable sitting there in Georgia, or is there any chance that Terrapin's even going to move from its current position out there in Georgia?
Um, well, to be candid, we did kind of look around, and we were really considering moving. But we looked at it and said, hey, Georgia and the people of Athens and the people of Atlanta, and they built our brand. And it was almost like we would deceive our core drinkers by moving somewhere else. And what happens when you do make that move? Where's your core base? Do you lose your core base or not? I mean, you look at somebody like New Belgium or Sierra, they still kept their brewery, but then built another one on the East Coast, which was great. So for us to pick up and physically move the brewery out of Athens and go to another state, that was just too big of a risk for us to take. Like I said, if I had to do it all over again, Georgia probably wouldn't be my first choice. I love the state. It's just hard for breweries to start in this state. So personally, I would recommend a beer friendly state to put your brewery in.
So I guess kind of a follow on question to that. Do you have any plans to take another aspect of Terrapin into another state, sort of like New Belgium and Sierra Nevada did? or is that just way too much money? And is that kind of over your guys' head at this point?
Um, I think you have to figure out the capacity of your brewery, right? So we know we have a certain amount of space. We know we have a certain amount of land that we can grow into. So I think when you're probably about 5 years out from basically your capacity of your brewery, you've got to make a decision, right? Do I stay at my current production? I'm just going to throw a number out. Maybe it's 250,000 barrels, right? Do do I look at my okay, I'm at 250,000 barrels. I can't grow anymore, but my employees are taken care of. I'm taken care of. The business is taken care of, and I'm fine. I'm tapped out. That's where I want to stay. Or do you look at it and go, okay, I'm at 250,000 barrels. I have enough capital to, let's just say I want to go, I don't know, I'll throw Colorado out there and put another brewery in Colorado. Since I don't have to ship all the way out there, I'll have another brewery. We haven't gotten to that dilemma yet. But I would assume if someone looked at me today and said, okay, you're out of space, what are you going to do? I would probably build in another state. So that's what I would do. But we're not there yet. We're quite a bit of ways away from that. But you have to consider your footprint, right? If I'm doing 200,000 barrels, in what radius am I doing that? If I can supply my current radius, fine. But if I need more capacity, I may have to move out of state to get that done.
So we got Chris from Georgia Beer Company, and he wants to know, what is your opinion on the recent Senate Bill 63, the Georgia Beer Jobs Bill? And can you kind of expand on what that is for the listeners out there?
Yeah. What is my opinion? My opinion is not too highly of it. Yes, I mean, it was a win for us. Was it what we wanted? Not exactly. Did we make people sit up and take notice of the craft brewing scene in Georgia? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people now know that we've got great breweries in Georgia, and we're not going away. And we will continue to knock on the door and try to get things done. Was it a victory for us? Absolutely. I mean, at one point, there was no way in hell that that bill was going to get voted on, and we got it voted on, and we actually got it passed. So, you take the good with the bad. We can continue to nibble away and try to make Georgia a friendly state for breweries. Will that happen? Sure. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Probably not. But I think as we get more breweries opening up in Georgia, and we get a stronger Brewers Guild, and we get stronger lobbying, and we have people to pick up the phone and call their congressmen, senators, and all that, we'll make it happen. It's just going to be an uphill battle, and we just got to stick to the fight and get it done.
And for those listeners out there that are in these states that are terrible with their alcohol laws, is there any way, like, what's like the best route that you could go to fight for your rights as a brewery owner?
Oh man, well, you got to take it to the streets, right? So you got to take it to the people, because people vote, right? It would probably help if you knew some congressmen and senators and you can bend their ear. You also have to watch where the money's coming from. The people who influence the politicians have a lot more bigger pockets than we do. So it starts with grassroots. I mean, make sure people know that it's an issue. Make people understand that when these laws change, breweries will be paying more taxes, we'll be hiring more people, we'll be growing the economy. I mean, who doesn't want to do that, right? I mean, it's going to benefit everyone. What you don't want to do is piss those people off and, send them nasty emails and slander them online and do all that kind of stuff. These guys are human, right? I mean, they know what's going on out there. You have to play by the rules, right? Politics is not fun, but if you stick your nose in there and just keep hammering away and play by the rules to get things done, it might not take you 2-3 years. It might take you 5, but it's persistence. It really is.
So how do you deal with the shortages in hops and grains, and how is Terrapin kind of dealing with that sort of situation with these just because there's so many breweries opening up, there's so many shortages, and they didn't plan for it to happen, so obviously, so now that they are, how's Terrapin dealing with it?
We use a lot of different vendors, right? When I came up in this business, I remember, that's all you had to do is pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I need 88 pounds of Cascade, and I need 35 pounds of blah blah blah," and it wasn't a problem. It was the day I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I need a couple boxes of Cascade," and the lady on the other end of the phone said, "Well, we're out." What do you mean you're out? So it was a rude awakening. And like I said, we kind of use there are a lot of vendors out there. We love them all, but we kind of use them all as well, because if you have all your contracts with one vendor and they have a bad season or they have a fire or whatever, you're not going to get your hops or raw materials. So my suggestion would be to have, a lot of different contracts with different vendors so you can lean on them when the times are tough. And make sure you go out and contract,
Well, Spike, this brings us into the final question, and this one is from me. What's the best advice that you have for everybody out there before we sign off here?
As far as what? Don't
As far as creating, growing, and profiting from your brewery, what's the best advice? Something that people could do to either get started today or just to expand on their brewery now that they've got it open.
Yeah, I think for me is kind of know your market, right? So, like we talked before, there's a lot of IPAs out there, and if you're going to leave with an IPA, what's going to be different about it, right? How are you going to stand out so people can say, "Oh yeah, there's that IPA, that IPA, that IPA." Well, then there's Terrapin Hopscutioner. I want that, right? So, and what's your story behind your brewery? Can you romance what your story is and where you came from and how you started the brewery? And people love that. People love to connect with the companies and who they're buying their goods from. So, I mean, and just fit in with your clientele. I mean, like I said, people love to know who their brewery is, who their brewmaster is. So it's really being part of your community is very, very huge as well.
All right, I lied. There's actually one more question that we're gonna ask. It's from Quinta Esencia Brewing Company down in Panama, and I'm really interested in the international beer game. I actually have a brewery out of Taiwan coming on the Brewing Business Podcast here soon, so you guys check that out. But let's see here. So, what would it take for an up and coming microbrewery trying to diversify or to import, say, Terrapin into Panama? Or either into the festivals that down there for selling?
Gosh, I don't know the Panama market. I mean, I would assume it would take an importer, right? So you would have to get Terrapin beer through an importer, and then I don't know what their system is on the other hand, right? So does it go through government to get the beer in? Does it go through distributors? So I'm sorry, I don't know the ins and outs of Panama's thing. We do some exporting. So you just got to know who you're exporting to. Do you have to go through the government? Do you have to go through a certain distributor? And what does it take for you to get the beer out of the country, right? So I'd have to do my homework on the Panama part. Well, are they interested?
Well, let's see here. They'll probably comment here in just a second and let us know.
No, and we're seeing.
Go ahead.
We're just seeing more and more of that. I mean, we just started doing a little distribution in Puerto Rico. We do a little bit in Sweden. So it's kind of neat to see the export game happen. And who knows, you may have to do that over time to get your capacity up, is to go overseas, right? So we'll see what happens as more and more breweries in the States take up that shelf space, right?
Well, Spike, I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the Brewing Business's first webinar. I had a blast. I'm sure everybody else did. tons of people watched today. There was tons of people that
Awesome.
signed up. So everybody that didn't catch the entire webinar, you can definitely check it out. There's going to be a replay. I'll shoot out an email shortly after this. And if you want, you can go check out the Brewing Business Podcast at brewingbusinesspc.com. Spike, where's the best way that we can connect with you and Terrapin?
Easy, Spike at terrapinbeer.com. So the website is www.terrapinbeer.com.
And for everybody who was wondering whether or not you got the brewing business or the Beersmith software, I'm going to leave the chat roll open for another 2 minutes. And so everybody put their, yes, I want Beersmith down there. And I will try to get as many, I'll try to find the best people to give that away to. So again, thank you, Spike. And we will see you later. Thanks again for hanging out with us.
Cheers. Thanks so much.